Welcome to the It's Your Choice podcast, where we learn how to rewire our brains to live the life we desire. On with the show. Welcome to the show, Tanya. I really appreciate your time with us today. Now, we were talking a little bit before we started recording here about four facets of eating move beyond a diet culture way of life. And we're very much a diet culture way of life. So, can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that?
And was a health coach, and it was very much all focused on what were people were eating. It was food tracking, it was exercise tracking, it was calories in, it was calories out. And I did that for almost a decade. And I really then understood that even the well people that didn't need nutrition therapy were so into this diet culture and the number on the scale, and it was a good or a bad day based on what that number said. And I remembered so much what that felt like for myself when I was in my own disorder, which I had been out of now for another 10 years. And so that led me through a whole journey of really looking at health at every size and really trying to understand what is health and well-being. We cannot have a certain weight if we're at the expense of our well-being. That's not a trade-off that's worth having. That led me to writing a journaling program because people said to me, well, if I'm not supposed to follow a diet, what am I supposed to do? How do I learn how to eat more intuitively? So you maybe have heard of intuitive eating, but
Mhm.
intuitive eating is over here and diet culture is over here. And there's a big, big chasm in between. And that's for mindfulness and attuneness and learning these four facets of food and eating. The eating process is more than just what you eat. That's one facet. So the journaling program, the Mindful Bee Journey, was that process of using these four facets. But I found in my counseling, my one-on-one, that I have to help people understand that there really are four aspects that we even need to be looking at. So that's what led to this kind of diving into that a little deeper. So the first facet is, what are you eating? And that's where tracking focuses on what. That's where people talking about organic or talking about farm raised or things like that, non-GMO. That's all focused on the what. And I'm not saying that that's not important, because it is, right? With as much GMO and pesticides and glyphosate and all of those things, we do have to pay attention to what we're eating. But the
Right.
next part of it is when we're eating. And different body types, their metabolisms work differently. So one person might say, well, I'm hungry every 3 hours. Well, that can be focused on what you're eating, because you're going to burn carbohydrates faster than you burn fats and proteins. But it also might be your body type and your metabolism rate, and that your metabolism rate is effective and efficient. That's a good thing. You want it to be effective and efficient. So if it's burning and your body is telling you it needs more fuel, you want to start to get into those hunger fullness cues and understand that. So that's that when and the timing. And we want to start to pay attention to that. Then there's the how. And that's the one that I have found people pay no attention to at all. And it really is the key to so much of attuneness and mindfulness in your body. And that comes from, are you eating in the car, racing to the office? Are you eating drive through because you didn't have time to make dinner because of a busy schedule? Are you eating in 10 minutes and you have no chance for your hunger fullness cues to even signal, because it takes 20 to 25 minutes for the brain to understand hunger and fullness? And so you're done in 10, so there's no time. So then you're always overeating, because by the time you get to 20 minutes, you've well overdone it. And so that how, I look at pace, I look at people, and I look at process. And so you want to start to understand that how really well. And then the fourth facet of it is why. If you're eating because you're hungry and you're fueling your body, great, wonderful. But we all eat for a variety of other reasons besides just fueling our body, right? And
Right.
so we have to understand the why. Are we eating because we're emotionally driven to do that, because we're lonely or we're tired or we're sad or we're stressed? But are we also doing it because we're bored and we're bored in our mind, that we need to be mentally engaged. We're bored in our hands, that we just need something to do. We're bored in our body, that we need to move. People need to move after sitting and watching a 2-hour movie. And so sometimes they go to the refrigerator, they walk to the kitchen because it's a place to walk. And so it's like, well, let me look and see what's in the pantry. But it really was about moving their body. It really wasn't about that they were hungry. And so it's understanding, why are we doing what we're doing? So you look at those four facets, and then you ask yourself some questions. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And how can I do it differently?
I'm very guilty of a lot of those things that you just mentioned. I was like, oh yeah, that's me. I mean, the fast eat when I lived in Canada and I was very busy, a lot of times, yep, drive through on my way to a meeting in between appointments. I definitely did that. Um, Now more so just because I'm by myself
Hmm.
and I sit by myself. Sometimes I have a meeting or something coming up. Most times it's just because, well, I'm just by myself. So I just eat quickly and literally probably 10 minutes, I'm done.
Hmm.
And then I have found myself like, oh, I'm done. Oh yeah, I've got some nuts in the cupboard. I'll just eat some nuts, even though I've already eaten my
Hmm.
plate of food. I'll have some nuts or I'll have a piece of cheese or I'll just as I'm kind of cleaning up because, well, it makes sense. I haven't given myself enough time to be full.
And people
And
also are eating in front of screens, whether it's work screens, whether it's television screens, whether it's phone screens, and you don't
mm,
connect body cues. You eat mindlessly when you're in front of a screen. And so those are also aspects that you have to look at. Um,
yeah,
and I have one story that I learned as a kid growing up and didn't even recognize it as a important how are you eating story until I, got to be older. My grandmother was widowed at 55, and at this 2 weeks later, her daughter, youngest child, went off to college. So she went from a family of three to being alone,
oh,
and
that's
that
tough.
was a very hard thing. And she was a working woman, but then she would come home at night, and she had an apartment, and she found that she didn't enjoy cooking, and she didn't want to cook for herself, and she just wasn't eating great, and she missed
I can
community.
re I can relate because that's how I am. I'm like, cooking for one sucks. Why would I spend an hour to cook when it takes me 10 minutes to eat?
So what she did was she had a group of friends that she had created that they ended up naming the Wild Wacky Widows. And they traveled together and they did other things together, but none of them really, they were all working women, and they didn't really, any of them enjoy cooking. And so they had a standing appointment at 5 o'clock at the same restaurant every day, Monday through Friday. And so it was just whoever was available at 5 o'clock, show up. Sometimes it was three people, sometimes it was five or seven people. It just depended on people's schedules, but it was a standing appointment. They had the same table, the same people, same routine. And so when I was in high school, sometimes if I had like a basketball game or something and I didn't couldn't go home for dinner at my house, I would go and have dinner with them because I always knew at 5 o'clock there was a place to go and people to eat with. And so she put into place a how that helped her eat well. In today's society, you could change that up and you could say Mondays at my house, Tuesdays at your house, Wednesdays at Becky's house, and you know,
Mm,
do it that way so that you're not cooking for one person, you're cooking for a group and you're having that community. And so that how really, really is important. And what I have learned as I have worked with people is that that's the one, the tracking, they got it down. This is what I'm supposed to eat. This is what the diet tells me I'm supposed to eat. Well, what if you're not satisfied by that? What if it's too much? What if it's too little? What if that's not the right prescription for your body type? There's more. It's not a one size fits all. It's not a follow this diet plan because it worked for me. Great, but you're not me. So that doesn't mean
right.
it's going to work for me.
I think that's something that people really need to understand. And I've been saying that for a long time with just like even just decades with general conversation with just friends before I've really studied a lot of it. Because I always thought, well, if one thing always worked, we would only need one thing. And people are like, well, if it's working for all these people, I said, but let's look at the medical industry as an example. How come we have Tylenol, Advil, ibuprofen, and a
Mhm.
number of things that basically do the same thing? And everybody has their preference because something works better for them. Because, yes, as human beings, we are all pretty much the same, where we have a heart and intestine and digestion and, our body functions. However, at a cellular level, we are all
Mhm.
very different. And easily to explain that is some people have allergies. Some people have reactions to certain foods or intolerances to things. And so therefore at that cellular level, we are all very different. And there is no one size fits all. It's figuring out what works for us. And just as you said, just because it works for, 5, 7, 12 people that
Mhm.
great for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I think that's where the big struggle comes from too, is I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried, and
Mhm.
it does get frustrating because we need to figure out what works for us.
The other thing too is that I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and so I have that side of it. But I also have the certified integrative mental health professional, and it's the mental side of it that I think has played so much in for people, in that.
Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to let you know about the Mind Matters weekly newsletter that is full of actionable tips to help you rewire your brain to live the life that you desire. Sign up for it at sallypeterson.com. And when you do, you'll get the top 5 brain hacks for peak performance. Again, you can get it at sallypeterson.com. Now back to the show.
More losing more weight is better. If I lose 20 pounds, that's better. And they've gained and lost the same 20 pounds 5 times. Well, actually, that's not better for your body. That's not better for your system. It would be better if you lost 10 pounds and kept it off for 5 years. That would be better. And so we
Right.
get this idea that more is better, and we feed into it as a culture as well. And I'm guilty of it too. I've gotten much better in the last 10 years, but oh, you look so great. What have you done? Oh, your diet must be working. You look great. You've lost a bunch of weight. When actually they have disordered eating and they're restricting and they're really not doing it in a healthy way. I remember in college, I was really over the top. My brother got married, my older brother got married, and I showed up, and my mom's trying to fix my dress because I had lost so much weight because I was using laxatives, and really I was at really bad. And but people were telling me how great I looked because I'd lost weight and I looked great and I looked wonderful, and all that did was feed the beast. That's all those comments did, was feed that beast to do it more and get deeper and deeper. And so we have to really watch how much we're commenting on people's bodies in general, big or small, weight loss or weight gain. Um, it's really not a cultural thing that we should be doing, is commenting on people's bodies, and we're doing it with younger and younger children. We're labeling younger and younger children. BMI is horrible and should not be being used on
Oh,
children in general, or told to children in general. If you want to tell their parents, that's fine, tell their parents, but you don't need to tell an 8-year-old girl that she's obese. Like, what are you doing? You're setting it up. And that's where our medical community has really failed us in a lot of ways. Um, 30 years ago, when I started practicing, BMI was nothing. We didn't use it. It wasn't a calculation that anybody paid it. I mean, it was there, but it was not a marker of health. And
and
somehow,
we have to really be careful with that too, because muscle weighs more than
Mhm.
fat. And I've had a time where I was fairly muscular and lean at the same time. And according to the body mass index, I was borderline overweight, and I
Yep,
was not
right.
overweight by
A
any means.
body a bodybuilder will show up as obese because
Right.
of all that muscle. That was my story in college. I was 19% body fat. The proper range for an athlete is 15, a female athlete is 15 to 20% body fat. I am a large body frame. I have a large frame size. I was very muscular and fit, That's what she liked about me when she saw me, that I was physically fit, I was muscle and tone. But
Mhm.
that transferred to a number that she didn't like on the scale, and not really thinking about it from a muscle weighs more than fat, just looking at
Right.
the range for a 5 foot 10 inch woman. Well, you're above that range, so therefore. And those
Yeah.
metropolitan charts and those insurance charts were never meant to be used as a health indicator. They've always been misused. And so
Hmm.
it's just gotten so much worse in the last 10, 15 years. I can't imagine being an 8-year-old today because I don't know what they would have said to me back then, you know?
Right. Right. And people need to realize though, like as you said, we need to look at healthy. And healthy isn't a definition of a set of numbers, a weight, or whatever, because too lean, too skinny, even if you're not skinny or super lean, that doesn't mean that you're healthy. You can be lean, not super, but what we would think an ideal kind of weight, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy. And on the opposite side of that, you could be somebody listening might think, well, I'm chunky or I'm a little bit heavy or something, but you're very healthy. Like there is
Very
a difference with weight and health, and that really needs to be defined as what is healthy for me.
right. And that's where body types come in. And that's a conversation that I have with people, but I don't think a lot of practitioners do. One of the things I think is funny, it's not funny, it's sad, but when you know what you're looking for, you can watch some of these commercials and you can see that they use an endomorphic body type that's all sad and upset because of their weight, and they're standing on a scale and they're making the scale go back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. Then they introduce their product or service or program, and then they show an mesomorph who is totally fit, totally chiseled, and gives you the idea that you will look like that. An
Right.
endomorph will never look like that. And that is a reality that people have to come to understand. You are a body type that was genetically created for you by the people who created you, your mother and your father, your birth mother and your birth father. Those genetics. When I look at my own family tree, I have 3 brothers. My older brother and I take after my dad's side of the family with broader shoulders and a broader, stockier build. My younger 2 brothers are longer and leaner, and they take after my mother's side of the family. My mother has a very, very tiny waist, very tiny arms. She's a very small framed woman. That's not the frame I got. And so I can look at my mother. I've seen people look at their sister, who's a different genetic kind of makeup, and I wish I looked like her. And we have to come to reality with who we are and how our body types are. There are ectomorphs that are longer, leaner. They have harder time getting muscle. I have seen a number of athletes who are those ectomorphs, and they're in the gym and they're trying really hard to create definition. You can be in there all day long. You're not going to create the same muscles as a mesomorph. The mesomorphs get the genetic lottery, as I call it, and they have an easier time building muscle and a bit easier time burning fat and removing fat. And an endomorph has that rounder body type, that more apple shape, and more birdish legs sometimes. And they're very strong, but you can't see the muscle definition, and you're definitely not going to see six-pack abs. So if that's what you're going for and you have an endomorphic body type, you have to be realistic that you can have strong abs and a strong core, and that's important, but you're not going to look like your mesomorphic friend. So
Right.
people have to understand their body.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. And as you said, like I don't hear people talking about that. It is, the latest fad diet, the this workout, the latest whatever medication. And it does unfortunately make people think that I just need to work out more, diet more, count more
Mhm.
calories, cut out carbs, and eventually I will look like that.
Correct. And you won't. and you'll be disappointed, and you'll go back to your binge habits and your unhealthy habits, not understanding those four facets of the eating process, and not and really thinking it's about calories in and calories out, and how come I'm not succeeding. And then mentally that takes a toll on you, because then you feel like you're less than. And then that's where emotional eating comes in. And so it's a big cycle. um, I we go back to the thoughts about, the conversations with people, and, you've lost 20 pounds, you look so great, even though knowing that sometimes they've done it in an unhealthy way. Um, Disordered eating and eating disorders are two separate things. Eating disorders have a DSM diagnosis.
Okay.
Many people have disordered eating. I never came up with any kind of close to a DSM diagnosis of an eating disorder. But I had a lot of disordered eating and a lot of disordered practices that were making me very unhealthy and mentally not in a good place with how I felt about my body, how I felt about food, how I was fueling my body. That's where conducting a food and exercise kind of behavior survey and really looking and understanding, you find out that chronic dieting in and of itself is disordered eating. It's this trying to change the body, manipulate the body in unhealthy ways. So while there is a lot of need for places that are serving people with very severe eating disorders, if we would catch people when they were in the disordered eating phase, helping them understand their body types, helping them stop looking at their friend who's a different body type than them and saying, well, I want to be that. Well, honey, you're not going to be that. And here's why. Let me give you some education. Let me help you understand. I have the best results with clients because of that process. Because when they start to go, oh, okay, now it's making sense. When I was on that diet and I did lose 80 pounds, I still didn't like what I saw in the mirror because I didn't look like I expected. And what they expected was to look like somebody else.
Right.
So it's a vicious
So
cycle.
yeah, and then I'm sure each diet, each time it gets worse
Mhm.
and worse. So to kind of step back to step one, I'm assuming it would be of a bit of a step one, is how do we know what our body type is to then understand the best way for us to be healthy and what our body needs for it to be the best it can be?
So, because I care about this so much, I actually have a free kind of download out on my website, just under the free tab, that people can go. They can download kind of a booklet, an ebook that can walk them through the different body types, and they can use some parameters to determine for themselves, oh, this sounds like my body type. Um, Once you kind of know what your body type is, then you can start to understand that that longer, leaner body is more the marathon runner, and the endomorph is more the wrestler. And so there's a diagram in there of Olympic athletes, of all different shapes and sizes. And one of the things that I talk about in that ebook is, a gymnast has the perfect body type for success as a gymnast. And a basketball player has the perfect body type for success as a basketball player. We would never tell the basketball player that they need to cut off their legs and their arms to be smaller to be successful as a gymnast. And we would never tell a gymnast, oh, you need to stretch if you want to be successful as a basketball player. That's not to say that a gymnast can't play basketball. And that's not to say that a basketball player can't learn how to be a tumbler, but that doesn't, you don't have the body type to be the most successful in that, right?
Mhm.
And so when you start to look at that and see that we're all made with different shapes and sizes, if you start to look in your own family and see the different shapes and sizes and start to say, okay, this is starting to make sense once you start to realize who you are. So that is a free giveaway that I have for people because I want people to know their body type. For me, that was freeing. When I was able to look at that and go, okay, what do you know? Okay, I have very long arms and legs like my mom's side of the family. That's great and wonderful. It's been great for sports. I've been very successful in my sports career because of those long limbs. But my trunk and my metabolic system is an endomorph like my dad's side of the family. And so that's the
Okay.
part you have to understand, that you're not a one thing. You're not just, I'm just an endomorph or I'm just an ectomorph. No, you're a combination. It's like Mr. Potato Head, right? You can put those Mr. Potato Head toys together any way you want. Well, that's kind of how
Okay.
we've been put together based on the genetics of our birth parents. And so understanding your, especially your trunk, especially your like your shape, where do you gain weight first, where do you lose weight last, understanding those types of things helps you understand metabolism, which helps you understand body systems, which helps you understand why I used to say I have a six pack, it's just hidden in my soft sided cooler.
Say that to people too. I'm like, I have a six pack. It's just hidden
You just
there.
can't see it.
Yeah, but it's there.
And I had a really good, strong core, but no matter, even at my 19% body fat, I didn't have a six pack that was visible. And so, if
Mm.
that's the expectation, well, that was unrealistic for me to ever expect that. But I kept thinking, if I lose weight, then surely that's going to come with it. And then that'll help the coach feel better because I look this way and I look like so and so on the team who looks like that. I got caught up in all of that, looking at teammates and looking well, she's 5'10" and I'm 5'10, so we ought to look the same. And no. And so that was a very freeing thing to me. So that is out there for people. And I hope many, many people will take advantage of it because it really is an important thing to understand what your body type and your frame and your shape really are.
Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show.
Another thing that's in there is a diagram of about 8 women that are all the same number on the scale, but they are different heights, they are different shapes, they are different body types, and they are all wearing the same exact clothing. And you can see the variation, that it's not about a number on a scale, because you can all weigh the same number, but you're going to look totally different because of those body types. And when you can start to understand that, you can start to say, okay, I've been looking at all the wrong things and comparing myself and feeling bad about myself in the
Mm.
process. That's the mental side of it. I don't want people to, there's the physical well-being, and then there's your soul, your mind, will, and emotions. And your emotional well-being and your mental well-being determine the behaviors that you do. And so when you
Right.
can get those in balance, you can live a healthy, happy whole life. And that's my goal, is to try to help people find that right combination that helps them live that healthy, happy whole life. And I know for me, it was very, very freeing when I started to put all these pieces together and say, it's not about the number of calories that I'm eating. It's not about the number of calories I'm burning. It's about stress. It's about hydration. It's about sleep. It's about all of those things together and the life you're living. And are you living it in the best way possible, or are you burning the candle at both ends?
Well, I think a lot of people are burning the candle at both ends. And I think unfortunately it is the focus of the number, whether it's I need to be a size
Mm-hmm.
X or
Mm-hmm.
weigh X on the scale. And then also part of it is, as we kind of talked about it at the beginning, is what we are consuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we are going through the drive-through, let's be honest, that's not healthy food. You know, if we're eating potato chips, that's not healthy. I've recently been struggling a little bit with chocolate, and it kind of came out of nowhere because I have not been into chocolate, but the last about a month, I've just been like, I'll go to the store and they'll have those massive, like, it's not even a chocolate bar. It's like 790 grams. It's huge. And I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to have a little bit. And I'll have a little bit. And it's beside me, have a little bit more. And a few hours later, I've eaten the whole thing.
Yep.
And then I'm just like, and then I'm craving chocolate now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I
The more you
actually
have,
just,
the more you want.
yeah, and I just came back from the grocery store before recording this, and I was looking at it and I'm like, no, Sally, mind over matter. Don't do it because you will eat it all. You don't need it. Don't get it.
that goes back to that why,
Yeah.
and is it the sugar is addictive. It does have those principles, it does have those properties, and so we have to kind of look at that. Sometimes we have to just look that, our body, if it's craving something, there might be something we're missing, a
Hmm.
nutrient in our diet that we're missing. I can go to pretty much any restaurant and I can figure out how to find a meal at about 500 calories or less. And that's really the goal, is when you're eating out, you want to be around 500 calories or less. But it means you have to be able to say, okay, please put that on the side. Please don't add the butter. Please make instead of the potato, I'm going to have two of the vegetable. You have to make substitutions.
Right.
Um, but it again, we have to think about the the what's in the foods that we're eating. Whole
Mm.
foods are always going to be better than any kind of processed anything, right? Especially in the United States. Maybe not so in Europe, because Europe has better rules and laws about their processed foods.
They do.
But in America, right now, we stink. And we have a lot of additives and a lot of preservatives and a whole lot of stuff. The other thing is, we have a lot of genetically modified things that people don't understand. They say, well, I don't eat GMO. Well, you do, because soy is one of the leading GMO products, and soy is used as every protein enhanced thing. You have to look. A lot of times it's soy
Mm.
that's the protein that's enhancing it. And so, I'd rather people be eating two eggs than eating a protein bar. Two hard-boiled eggs is going to give you, 14 grams of protein, and that's way better than the 9 or 10 grams you're getting in the protein bar that you're also getting soy that's messing with your phytoestrogens levels and your estrogen and your testosterone levels and all the hormone imbalances, among other things, right?
And the sugar and
Right.
the.
Right, right.
Yes.
I mean, when they're words you can't pronounce, you have to think, what is that doing to your body, to your systems, to your hormone balance, all of those things.
Mm.
There's a lot of endocrine disruptors that are, present in those words that we can't pronounce. So if you go with whole foods, if you go with a food in its natural form as much as possible, when you need something sweet, think about a date. A date also has magnesium and copper and iron. It's sweet. It's going to give you that sweet treat, but it's also going to give you other things your body needs that
Right.
sugar and chocolate aren't going to.
Yeah, because
Um,
it's just a sugar fix, and
right.
that's it, even though it is delicious.
I don't know if people have the Boar's Head brand in their stores where they shop, but Boar's Head in the Cincinnati area is a very popular brand, and they make a chocolate hummus, that it's a dark chocolate
Oh,
hummus, and so that's another thing to go with. If you really have a hankering for that, you can take some graham crackers and dip those in the chocolate hummus. You're getting a little protein there, so you're getting the protein to go with the carbohydrate to help keep your blood sugars a little bit more stable. Um, and you're less likely to eat the whole container because it's hummus than it is if you're eating this whole big chocolate bar. So,
right, right. Well, and I do agree that part of it is awareness. So when I went through a phase of potato chips and just plain salted potato chips, and I was thinking, obviously my body is craving salt.
mhm,
So what other things can I be eating? Because I was at a point like I don't put salt on anything, and because I was always there's enough salt in a lot of
mhm,
things that I don't need to add salt. But then realizing that the salt that's added isn't the salt that my body is craving. There's
correct.
like real salts,
Right.
minerals in it, and not
Celtic
this
salt, sea
table salt.
salt.
Yeah, like
Yeah. Yep.
exactly. And so those are the things. And so sometimes now when I think of the potato chips, I'm thinking, am I just craving salts? Maybe I just need to have
hmm
something with some salt in it. And now I'll have this morning drink of what is in it? Ginger, lemon juice. I do put some salt in it, a little bit of black pepper,
hmm
some turmeric, a tiny bit of honey, and apple cider vinegar. Sounds like a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, and I mix it
Nope.
all together with hot water, and I absolutely love it. Every morning, empty stomach, it's the first thing I have, and I just feel great with it.
Yeah, it's a good tonic. Mine doesn't usually have the turmeric and that kind of stuff in it. Always apple cider vinegar and lemon juice. And I can do it
Mm.
without the honey. I've learned how to do it without the honey, but
I'm down to just a little bit, but I make sure too that it's like natural
that
raw
raw.
honey.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep,
because
yep,
otherwise, if it's processed, it's obviously
right.
not as good for us. But I'm I'm cutting it out. I'm getting down to less and less with it because I know too that it is again a sugar. So
Yeah.
I want to keep those to a minimal.
Right. Yeah, well, just, when you're looking at what you're eating, start thinking about those four facets, not just the what you're eating,
Mm.
but when you're eating, what's that timing? And again, body type will tell you, an endomorphic body type, intermittent eating, intermittent fasting is a really popular, trend.
Yes.
Okay, well, it's perfect for an endomorph. It's not perfect for a mesomorph or an ectomorph. So it's not the right approach for those body types. But your hunger cues, starting to get into those hunger cues, will help you know when. If you know when you're hungry, when your body's telling you it needs fuel, for an endomorph, a lot of times it's not going to be for 12 to 15 hours. So you have to remember that breakfast, the most important meal of the day, well, breaking the fast is anytime you're breaking the fast. And whether that fast is 7 hours or whether that fast is 15 hours doesn't matter. It
Right.
is important what you eat when you break that fast, most certainly. But this idea that breakfast has to be the first thing in the morning when you get up, people are like, I'm not hungry then and whatever. Well, yeah, you're an endomorph. I can understand why that is the way it is. So maybe it's 10 o'clock when you're hungry and when your body's
Right.
telling you it needs something. And so getting in tune with our body, we can't get to intuitive eating until we really are mindful about what our body's telling us and are in tune with what our body is and how it works.
Mhm. And just before we wrap up, I don't want to go because it's another thing that we can talk about for quite a while. What about water? Because
Oh,
I there's conflicting of, you should be drinking so much water and, throughout the day, X amount of glasses. It's not, and you should be sipping it all day, not like chugging a
mhm.
full glass. And then there's some people that say, well, if you're eating the right foods and fruits and vegetables and things like that, you don't really need the extra water. And then there's some that say, well, I just drink a lot of water, so I go to the bathroom a lot, but then that means we're missing minerals and
Right.
nutrients in our
Mhm.
body because then our body's not absorbing the water and that's why it's just flowing through us.
So 80% of your brain and your body is water. So the
Mm.
idea that you don't need that water readily available, don't need to replace it. There's perspiration, there's what's lost through when you're, metabolizing, when you eat, etc. The recommendation to sip all day long is because your body has built into it a mechanism that when you drink too much water at one time, the body freaks out and says, oh, no, no, this is too much. I can't handle this all at one time. And it just dumps it. That's why you have to go to the bathroom. You drink 2 cups and then a half hour later, you have to go to the bathroom. Well, that's because you drank too much at one time because your body couldn't process it and use it. So that's the whole sipping kind of recommendation. The second part of that is that yes, fruits and vegetables do add good hydration. There's good percentage. Watermelon has a lot of water in it. That's true. But the idea that because you're getting it through that, you don't need others, well, I don't think anybody, even a vegan, is eating enough fruits and vegetables to make up the water that they need, right? And so, half your body weight in water. Now that's if you're a larger bodied person, that's you can't go by that because you'd have to go by an adjusted weight to figure that out. But a dietitian could help you figure that out. But that's where that whole 8 to 10 glasses came from, 8 to 12 glasses came from, because that's about half of a body weight in ounces kind of approach. Um, in this day and age, you really want filtered water if at all possible, especially in the States. Fluoride is not what we've been told, and it is not helpful for us. And so, yeah, whether that's using a Berkey or some kind of water purifying system, filtration system. Um, there's also talk with water with the higher alkalinity water. And the reason for that higher alkalinity water is your body wants to be about a 7 in alkalinity. When you have a lot of things, stress being one of them, diet sodas, coffee, tea, those types of things, they're a 3. And so sometimes then that alkalinity, fruits and vegetables are 8s. So
Okay.
that's helping you. That's another reason why we encourage fruits and vegetables to help with that alkalinity acid base balance. Um, if you are a big coffee drinker, having that alkaline water can help offset that and get you back to that 6 or 7. So it's not right for all people, but for some people, alkaline water does make sense. Anybody with cancer, fighting cancer, I would definitely recommend alkaline water because cancer can't grow in alkalinity. So fruits, vegetables, and lots of alkaline water can help keep that pH level up there, and that can slow down the growth of cancers.
Very interesting. Well, it all starts with knowledge, and I mean, we don't know what we don't know, and so that's part of the reason why we're here is to learn and find out and ultimately figure out what is best for us.
Mhm.
So
Definitely.
I just want to say thank you very much, Tanya. And before we go, what is your website? So if people want to get in touch with you or other social media platforms to be in touch with
Mhm.
you, but I really want people to download that guide
Yes.
and get that to learn about their own body types. And I'm going to get it myself and see kind of what I'm doing right or what expectations I have of myself that were just inaccurate.
Yeah. litwellnesssolutions.com, and just go under the free tab and you'll see there's actually a couple downloads that you can get there, to help people understand their body and learn to love their body a little bit more. I'm also on Instagram at LIT Wellness Solutions, and um, they took down my Facebook one. So
Okay. Well,
it,
that is the downfall with social media is
yeah,
they're the ones that have the power. But um, we'll make sure to have the links though for your
great,
Instagram and your website and other things like all in the show notes to make it super easy for people to get in touch with you.
great. Thanks so much for having me. It was a wonderful conversation.